Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has been president for a year, and in 3 weeks, he will fulfill his constitutional duty to speak for the second time on the state of the nation. But what is the state of the administration? A month ago, we invited 3 political scientists to discuss the internal dynamics of the Marcos Jr. administration. Tonight, we continue the discussion, this time with a veteran journalist and a newspaper publisher. We want to know who's got the power. Good evening. I'm John Nery, and you are in the public square. In the last several weeks, the news media has been publishing or producing assessments of Marcos Jr.'s first year in office. Rappler has an outstanding series that includes a look at his impact not only on the usual areas of, say, the economy or foreign policy, but also on sports, the billionaires who advise him, the influence of the speaker's wife. Where are the centers of power in the Marcos Jr. administration? Who are in the circles of influence? And who are the influencers? To get a sense of the real dynamics in the Marcos government, we invited Manny Mogato, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and Dante Ang II, the chair and CEO of the Manila Times, to join us tonight. A third resource person was supposed to join us too, but she was taken ill yesterday. We wish her a speedy recovery. Good evening, Dante, Clink, if I may call you.
John, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, by your nickname, Clink. And Manny, good evening. Thank you for joining us in the public square.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, good to see you, Manny.
Yeah.
As I've said, I'm interested in the internal dynamics of the administration. I want to start by asking about 3 specific instances and what these instances tell us about how Marcos runs the government. First, the Frasco fiasco, the disastrous rollout of the new tourism campaign. Who do you think made the decisions here, and what does this say about the Marcos administration? Maybe I'll start with Clink and then with Manny.
Okay. Well, I think no one can deny that it's a major problem, an embarrassment to the Philippines. But I wonder also that maybe if we in media are also putting too much stock into the issue. There was certainly a mistake made. I think there are remedies that should be done, sanctions even against people maybe who were responsible, perhaps even the agency DTP. But I was listening, for example, to another interview of former Senator Gordon. Let's just sanction who needs to be sanctioned and move forward. I don't think it's a catastrophic mistake, certainly embarrassing. But I think the idea behind it, which is to give proper attention to tourism as a quick way to boost the economy, to create jobs, to stimulate rural development, I think is a valid policy. Yes, they made a mistake on this campaign, but I think the policy itself is sound. I mean, I happen to think that even Secretary Frasco is a very capable executive. I've met her before when she was still mayor of Liloan, because she was a recipient of an award that the Manila Times gave. So I know her even before she joined the Marcos cabinet. So yeah. I happen to think she's very capable. She made a mistake, but I think it's time to move on. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Manny, this is not the first time that a new tourism campaign rollout proved to be embarrassing, no?
Yes,
in the time of
in the past, yeah.
Noynoy Aquino, for instance, their first attempt was also controversial.
Yes, and
right?
also
but,
during the Duterte.
Yeah. What does this particular controversy tell us about how things are run in the Marcos government?
First, I think the tourism campaign is good because it will help promote the Philippines and bring back tourists, because we're losing out to other Asian countries like Thailand, Indonesia, where I think at the bottom, our tourist arrivals is very low.
Yeah.
And the revenues are also very low. So we need that promotion. But I think what happened is that they rushed into putting up a promotion video. No? And this promotional video went through a lot of screening, and I think the tourism board, Congress is also involved. The presidential consultant, advisor on creative involved, Paul Soriano. So I don't know where the problem.
Is that in fact a fact?
Yes,
That Paul Soriano was also involved
yes,
in the
he was involved in the planning. But when they viewed the video, I don't know what happened, because they might overlook some of the videos that were not from the Philippines. For instance, the rice terraces in Indonesia,
Bali, yeah.
Yeah.
the sand dunes in Dubai, the airport in Zurich, and the lake in Thailand. So I think the producers who made the video made a hasty decision to just put up something, no, without thinking of the percussion for the Philippines, because this is a tourism video for the Philippines, so they should be showing Philippine destinations.
I don't think anyone has even suggested that President Marcos Jr. was involved, right? Should he step in now and say, okay, we made a mistake, it's time to move on?
Yeah, I think he should step in, and I don't think the campaign should be changed. They should keep it. It's a good campaign, but maybe to rectify that, they should change the videos.
No, I think otherwise. I think the president should stay out of it. I think it's a disaster at this point. I mean, what's the point of for his office to salvage? I think Secretary Frasco is more than capable of doing something about it. But I think I'll throw a wrench into your agenda. But it's not so much who's in control here, but I think there's a structural problem, and this is something we wrote about in Manila Times, that the problem in the Philippines is that the Secretary of Tourism really is in control of very little with regard to tourism. What we need in the Philippines, for example, are better airports. But that responsibility lies with the Department of Transportation. We need better roads to these destinations. That responsibility lies with DPWH. You need visa policies. But we've written before, we should reciprocate with Taiwan, who's given us, at least for a limited period, right, visa-free entry, of course, with conditions to Taiwan. And they become a very important source of tourism for the Philippines. We should reciprocate, right? But that responsibility lies with the Department of Foreign Affairs. It's really, the problem, as you said, is not just with this administration. It's really a structural problem that's been there for many administrations.
And the tourism department is only in charge of marketing the Philippines. The infrastructures are taken care of by DPWH, the transportation. So there are other agencies involved. So it should be an interagency.
Exactly.
Marcos Jr. has the first majority mandate in 30 plus years, right? Should he use that political capital to restructure the approach to tourism? I mean, I don't think anyone is saying that the tourism secretary should, have more powers than the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of Foreign Affairs and so on. But you did talk about a structural problem.
Yeah.
Should the president's political capital be used?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this problem will resolve itself. After I think our fascination about who was wrong in this case, and but the president should be focusing on more important issues: poverty, corruption. I mean, making sure that our country reaches an upper middle income status. There are so many. Power, right? There's so many things that the president should be looking into. This problem, I think, should be left second. That's why you have secretaries to do these things. Let her do her work, right?
I'm gonna pick up on something you said.
Sure.
And I think that will be the perfect segue to the second specific instance that I want us to discuss, and that's the appointment of the disgraced and personally, I think disgraceful lawyer Larry Gandon as presidential advisor for poverty alleviation. So that was very controversial because he doesn't bring anything to... I mean, the president has already on his cabinet the foremost expert on poverty in the Philippines, R.C. Balisacan.
RC,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And after all of that, no, so there was this controversy about the appointment. The National Anti-Poverty Commission met, and Larry Gandon wasn't there. Is there already a... Can we talk about this? First of all, how did this appointment, do you think, how did it happen? And why wasn't Gandon at the NAPC? Is there a backtracking?
Manny has
I'll start.
Well, we really don't know what happened there, but I think this is something like a payback because of Larry Gandon's support to President Marcos when he was running for election last year.
Sure.
And after the one-year ban on the election, because Larry Gandon ran for Senate under his ticket, so he obviously had promised him something that he will be appointed. But I think the appointment to an agency that tackles poverty is bad. It's inappropriate for somebody like Larry Gandon, who in an interview boasted that he's very rich. He has so many cars, he has a condo, he has so many money, doesn't need this government job. So I don't know. I think he should be appointed to another position, but not the anti-poverty or the something like that.
I've written before that the power to appoint is also the power to disappoint, right? I mean, people will always be critical of appointments, right? But in the case of Larry Gandon, what I am curious about is, with the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court as Executive Secretary, they must have known that a Supreme Court resolution was coming, right? So it was so embarrassing.
The appointment was made just before the
so the
Supreme
appointment
Court was announced.
Yeah, but I think they had already known, or they should have already known,
Yes.
that he's going to be disbarred. Now, I agree that with the argument that you don't need to be a lawyer to fight poverty, right? But this is like a self-inflicted wound. Why won't the administration appoint somebody only for that person to be disbarred the very next day? Is this a failure of staff work, or really they decided, this controversy is going to play out, and anyway we owe him and so on?
I think we do not know what really happened, but the timing suggests that it was the announcement of appointment was made before the announcement of the disbarment was made.
So they did not know. That's what you're saying?
No. Maybe they know.
Maybe they knew and they wanted to push through with it.
Yes.
Do you think that's
all of this is speculation. I think we have to qualify here that we're not insiders, or we're looking at this from the outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I get your point. I mean, if I were in Malacanang, I think I would see this as an embarrassment, diba? To make that appointment and then have soon afterwards an announcement about a presidential appointee's disbarment from the legal profession. We don't know what happened, but I think I'm curious to find out what exactly will Mr. Gandon do for anti-poverty. I mean, okay, if people say we should give him the benefit of that, he's had opportunities to address the disbarment issue. I'd like to hear what he has in mind to contribute to poverty. I think many people, rightly so, are skeptical. Mr. Manny was saying, okay, what do you know about the issue? What do you plan to do about it? I think I'm eager as anyone else to hear what he has in mind, because as you said, there are more qualified people in the cabinet to address poverty, but perhaps that's why he didn't have a cabinet position or an office, really. I'm not sure what he will be advising or to whom he will be giving his advice.
I heard him being interviewed by so many news programs. So soon after the program. And he seemed not to know what he will do. He said that he will await for the president to give him instructions. But I think as a presidential advisor, he should have something, his own initiative for the poverty alleviation. But he said, I will wait for the president's order. So he doesn't know what to do.
I think if I had an opportunity to talk to him, I'd ask him, did you ask for this particular position, or was it offered to you? I mean, if you listen to what Manny was saying, it seems like it was given to him. But,
Details to follow.
Details to follow, right? So that's why people get this impression that it's political payback, really, for what happened in the last election.
I think he said in that interview that he did not ask for it. It was given to him.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so but do you think it is within? Well, definitely it's within the president's right to recall the appointment. Do you think he should do that? You say he should be reappointed to some.
Yeah, I believe, based on his own expertise. Because obviously, he doesn't have expertise to deal with poverty.
Mr. Manny is being magnanimous. I don't know what he's an expert in, to be honest with you. What position do you think he would be well suited for? I mean, I'm sure he's a lawyer. He's had a.
It was.
He was a lawyer. He has, I think, a show on media with radio. But I'm a bit, what is he good? What is he good at? I mean, I don't think.
Maybe he has something to offer.
I don't know.
Well, he's very good at stoking controversy. So I think we should be careful about what we wish for, because he might be appointed, presidential consultant on communications or something. And that's, no, but we laugh about it. But I'm wondering, for instance, we've all heard that all roads lead through the First Lady. It's very difficult for me to reconcile the fact that she's a competent lawyer and to think that she would have signed off on, somebody who will be disbarred. I mean, I think lawyers take their reputation very seriously. Again, this is there's a thin line between speculation and educated guesses. Based on our experience, I'm just wondering how should we read this this came at the end of his first year in office, just political payback.
Yeah,
I think it's as simple as that, really. Support her.
Okay.
Give him an office.
Now the president.
And I don't think the first lady was
involved
in his appointment.
Why do you say that, Manny? Sorry, I'm asking. Old habit.
Old habits, sure.
Well, number one, the first lady is not a fan of the Marcos Loyalist group. In fact, the Marcos Loyalist group is identified with the sister. And you know that the sister and the first lady are not seeing eye to eye. So I don't think.
Is that also a fact?
Well, we
say that.
Yes, but there are speculations, there are rumors, but you see, the first lady is not a fan of Larry Gandon. That's what I know. So I don't think she is really involved.
That would make it even more interesting because the defense came from the executive secretary. And then I really find it curious that in his first opportunity to show what he's supposed to know about anti-poverty measures, he doesn't show up at the NAPC meeting with the president himself presiding, which might be, so maybe,
well, that could also be
abangan, as they say.
Yeah, they could also be trying to avoid some embarrassment because you had the disbarment. I mean, I think the last thing you want to do is you don't want someone who was just disbarred to be very close to the president. I think image-wise, that would not be a good look.
But the third specific instance I want us to discuss is an appointment that was received with general approval from all across the aisle, right? So Gilbert Gebo was a very good defense secretary under Gloria, and now he has been returned to Camp Aguinaldo. What does this say about the president? I'll start with you, Clint, and then Manny. But I want to include here the fact that Gilbert Chidoro also has cultivated a very good friendship with Vice President Sara Duterte. But his very first words were, "My marching orders are to change the policy, is to pivot from insurgency to external defense." Which I don't think the Vice President will agree with, but that's the President's marching order.
Yeah. So that was the policy, I think, even before, that was the policy even before Secretary Teodoro took office. That was the policy under, I think, acting Secretary Galvez, right? The pivot from internal security to territorial defense. So I think in fairness to Gebo, he inherited it. But what does it say? I think part of it is also what I think Manny mentioned also about Mr. Gandon. It's also a payback, but I think no one can dispute that Secretary Teodoro is very capable, intelligent, certainly articulate, and I think he knows what he's doing because he's been there before.
Yeah, and really, I appreciate this particular fact about him, that he was the first defense secretary to actually open a supply agreement arrangement with China. I think we bought some used equipment from China, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean,
I think
Manny is one of our best defense reporters.
The agreement with China started during the Ramos administration, when Defense Secretary Renato de Villa got some engineering equipment from China, non-lethal weapons. So that partnership has been going on since 30 years ago.
Okay, but Teodoro has very good relations with Beijing, and I think Washington can also expect similarly warm and close relations with Gebo Teodoro. I think that's why almost everyone says, this is an excellent choice. No?
Yeah.
How do you think that happened? I mean, he almost won a seat in the Senate, so that he has political capital himself. How did this decision come about, as far as you know, and what does this say about the president's first year in office?
Well, Teodoro was in President's mind from day one of his administration, but because of the ban,
Election ban.
of the election ban, the president placed some placeholders. No, first it was General Faustino, and then later General Galvez. So General Galvez has been returned to the peace process. Yeah. So I expect that Secretary Teodoro will do a lot of things for the defense because he already know the department, and he has a lot on his plate because the modernization program has to be restarted. Actually, there are at least 5 contracts that to be signed immediately because the Philippine Air Force needed more aircraft to fulfill its mandate of protecting the Philippine territory. And maybe within the next 3 months, we can see more aircraft because of this contract. And of course, the Philippines has a very good relations with the U.S. and Secretary Teodoro has very good relations with the military, and the military is known to be pro-U.S. So I would say that the good relationship with the U.S. will continue, but at the same time, because Secretary Teodoro said that we are no puppets to any country, so the Philippines would probably stay in the middle between U.S. and China.
But internally, I think one of the main issues facing the Defense Secretary is pension reform, which I think
that's a big headache.
Charlie Galvez was on the other side. I think he was trying to
Most military people were.
he was trying to convince the president to stop the change. How will that play out? I mean, where do you see Gebo Teodoro here as far as pension reform is concerned?
Well, he has to
Manny,
wait.
and then
He has to wait for a team from the DOF and the DND to conclude their consultations with the troops, because I think there is now a team from the DOF and the DND that is moving around the country and asking the soldiers what they think about a 5% contribution to a pension fund, which is not really something new. Because during martial law, the President Marcos Jr. has created a fund called the RSBS,
Yes.
the Retirement and Separation Benefit System. And it is funded by contribution from the military. 5% of their salary goes to the fund. And when they retire, they get only the money that they contributed. So
Principal?
no interest.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
So
no counterpart?
no counterpart, because the seed money for that RSBS was given by President Marcos, I think 500 million. No? So what happened is that the fund was mismanaged by the senior military officer, so it went bankrupt. No? So under President Benigno Aquino, they decided to put government money to the pension of the soldiers and policemen. And I think it's about high time that the soldiers would contribute again, because they have been doing that before. So why would they resist a proposal to for them to give contribution? Anyway, it's for them, and they will get back whatever contribution they get when they retire. So nothing is lost. Parang pinatago mo na yung pera mo.
For savings, yeah.
For your savings, yeah.
How do you think Gebo, who has, as I said, political capital, will perform here? I think, do you think he can make a good champion of pension reform?
I think it's expected of him. I mean, there's no other choice but to perform well. I think the pressure's on him to do something. I mean, he'll draw on his brief experience in finance, but as Manny said, this has been an issue that's been going on for a long time, and I think there's directive from the economic team, as I understand it, really to fix the system, because I think the reality is the way things are structured, this fund will run out of money. I mean, they have to, I think, look at the interest, the future interest of those serving in the military to this reform. And if that requires contributions from the soldiers, I mean, I think that has to be threshed out by the new Secretary of Defense. But you know, some of the things you'll have to deal with. I mean, do you impose these new requirements on those joining the military? Because those who are already in the service join the service under certain terms, and you know, it goes into fairness now that they would have to do something in addition to what they signed up for because of these changes. So I think those are the things that Secretary Gebo will have to deal with. But I think bottom line, I think we need a good pension system, as Manny said, something that's not going to be, I think, prone to corruption or mismanagement, because I think our military men deserve it. I mean, I think their only regret, I think, was how it was presented. Based on from some of the people I talked to in the military, I think they resented words such as, you know, ridiculous, you know, in describing the military pension system. If it's broken, then let's fix it. But don't attach, you know, those kinds of hurtful words. I think what they were saying, because I think the military personnel, more than any other public servant, right? I mean, risks the most. They're at, you know, fighting the insurgents, and if we get into war, they will be at the front line, and they make a point that they deserve some special treatment because of that.
But what kind of support do you think pension reform has from the original coalition that won last year's election?
I'm not sure, but I think the pension reform has to look at sustainability of the fund. And I think from what I've been just hearing from the news, they're looking at non-monetary benefits as well to be part of that total package. I think those are good things, but I think the bottom line is you need to have a stable fund for the military who are risking their lives, you know, serving the country.
Yeah, I agree with Clint that there should be sustainability. But I think what is important is that a professional group will handle the fund.
Professional,
Yeah, not the military, because the military is not It's not their expertise.
Okay. That's the same argument for the Maharlika Fund. And if we have time, we can talk about that. Click, I have a question. So thank you for helping discuss the first three specific instances. I'd like to expand the scope of the discussion. Click, about 2 months ago, the Manila Times ran an editorial that was critical of Speaker Martin Romualdez. Because of your father's appointment before as special envoy for international public relations of President Duterte, that editorial was read by some as showing the side of Vice President Duterte. I mean, that was how Vice President Duterte thought of the issue. First, can you address public perceptions about that?
No, I thought it was a legitimate issue. Well, I have to qualify that there are only a small group of people who write editorials for Manila Times. I'm part of that. Actually head that editorial group. If you're talking about, there have been several editorials to be honest with you. But if you're talking about the editorial calling out Speaker Martin on the way,
too often.
Driving too often, and are you referring to the removal of Gloria Arroyo as senior deputy speaker? Is that the one you're referring?
No, actually,
because there were several actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one that I have in mind actually is the one that says. They could have achieved more if it had been...
Yeah, I wrote that one too, but I think you're getting me in trouble. But I have to qualify, this is the opinion of the paper. Like I said, we take turns in writing the editorial. But I think the point there was, the speaker is a very powerful office. The speakership is a very powerful office in the country. And I think there's no question that he wants to help the Marcos administration. The question is how. And I think if, in our opinion, the best way to help the administration is pass the priority bills that was mentioned during the State of the Nation address. Speaker Martin likes to brag that the House has accomplished a lot, including passage of many priority bills. But it boils down to what? Comes down to what? 6, Manny? I don't know. Around that. I mean, very small number of bills. Now, what has he been spending his time on? Well, he's been I think helping the president promote the Philippines, which is also, I think, helpful. But the question is, where is he most helpful? He is head of a chamber, the House of Representatives, as Speaker of the House. He's a very powerful man who's responsible for 20 plus congressmen. Shouldn't he be focusing on the output of the House more than any other priorities of the country? I mean, that was the premise. Right? There's no question that he helps right, when he accompanies the president. But I think the editorial's argument was he could do more right, if he focuses on his job.
Manny, I heard from sources both within TV5 and ABS-CBN that when the original deal for them to collaborate fell through
because of the speaker.
It was because of Martin Romualdez.
Yes.
And now Martin Romualdez, through his company, has bought the
Teleradyo.
Teleradyo, essentially. Makes him very powerful. I mean, his company also has investments in other areas. What do you think is happening here?
Well, I think another rumor is that the speaker also wanted to get the Channel 2 from the Villara Group. The old TV. So Martin Romualdez might be building up a campaign machinery. Maybe not for 2025, maybe beyond 2025. Why is that? Because if you have a radio and television network, that would be a big plus in a political campaign. And we all know that the speaker is trying to shoot down the vice president. And it will be very interesting to find out this coming
midterms.
No, this coming session in Congress, whether the Congress will approve another confidential fund for the president.
For the Vice President.
There's no question that I think Martin is capable. I mean, talking about capability, he's highly educated, articulate. I think he has the experience. So I guess criticizing him is one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it, if he legitimately wants to be a serious contender for the country and possibly president, how does he do that? I think the better way to do that would be to show some solid accomplishments. Right? Solid accomplishments meaning this is what I did as Speaker of the House, and this is my product, rather than being a travel companion. Right?
Yeah,
looking
but
at the
the thing is, his president became president without any real solid achievements. I think he says maybe that's the...
The thing is, the opinion surveys now, point to Sara Duterte being the top contender compared to the Speaker. So, in my opinion, what the Speaker wanted to do is to change the charter.
I was going to ask about that. What do you
Change
think?
the charter so that the government will shift to a unicameral, maybe a unicameral, or even a bicameral parliamentary system that the president of the Philippines will be elected by Congress, not directly by the people, because Martin Romualdez has a good chance of becoming the leader if he will be only elected by his own peers.
Maybe Gloria Arroyo has something to say about that.
And Gloria Arroyo is also very popular among congressmen.
That's right.
So it will be a fight between Gloria and the Speaker.
I want to bring this issue of the charter change possibility back to Clink. You were talking about the lack of accomplishments of this particular chamber, at least in the first session of the 19th Congress. I want to ask, there were attempts to change the Constitution under President Duterte, but under Speaker Alvarez, I mean, the House was distracted by so many of the things that it wanted to do that they were not able to focus on charter change. Do you think under Martin Romualdez, the House will find a way to push the charter change train further down the track?
It's doubtful. I mean, I think nothing is impossible, but it seems highly improbable. I've been hearing also what Senator Robin Padilla has been saying in the Senate, and who's of course chairman of that committee in that chamber. I think it's all but dead in the Senate at the moment, and you can't get that going without cooperation from the upper chamber. You talked about that he may dream that changing the Constitution increases probability, but I think, as you said, there are other players in Congress, and that suggest that nothing assures the Speaker that if charter change happens, that he will have the votes. I mean, there are other dynamics going on there. I think that are worth looking into.
Well, I think that in Congress, he can have a solid support, but in the Senate, it's doubtful because the senators would not want to be forgotten, so to speak, because under the proposal of the Speaker, the powers of the Senate will be diluted.
I have so many more questions prepared, but we're running long. No? So one of the things, okay, so we focus on President himself, but also on the First Lady, Speaker Martin Romualdez. I want to ask, where is Gloria Arroyo here?
Nowhere. I think I think from what I've heard, that incident with the Speaker, where she was removed as senior deputy speaker, is really water under the bridge for her. Obviously, she is very close to the Vice President, so it's I think for our staff, it's worth telling our reporters to keep an eye on who she's talking to. Certainly, she's been meeting a lot, with the Vice President Sara Duterte. So I think it has yet to play out.
What about Vice President Sara Duterte? Going back to Gloria, I think
Gloria first.
Yeah, I think her problem is with the Speaker, but the First Lady,
her protege.
yeah, the First Lady is certainly talking to Mrs. Arroyo because Lisa is trying to build a political mass base for the president. Because in the 2022 election, Marcos won basically because of the Duterte. There is a big Duterte supporters that swept Marcos and Sara to power. And Lisa knows that the mass base is with Sara. So she wanted to build her own political mass base, and she needed Gloria to do that because Gloria has so much influence on Congress, and she's still very popular in Pampanga. Although nationally, she may not be very popular, but she still continue to retain some form of influence on many parts of the country. And the vice president, Sara Duterte, is still very popular. If you look at the opinion polls, she's number one in the survey, and Senator Tulfo is a distant second. So people now are thinking that by 2025 or beyond 2025, the support level of Marcos can decline, and all of them will shift to the vice president because they're thinking of 2028. And you know, this political system we have is not very friendly to sitting president. So the sitting president may be popular up to the midterm elections, but after that, everybody is looking for who's the next leader.
Although, as you yourself pointed out, Duterte example also negates part of that, right? I mean, Duterte remained very popular, and his popularity transferred to his daughter, or was shared by his daughter. And when his daughter decided not to run for president, that's when the survey fortunes of Bongbong Marcos went up. I think essentially it was 1 + 1 = 2, which is unusual, I think, in the Philippine setting. What do you think will happen? But I'm still struck by the fact that you think the House is in a position to remove confidential funds from the Vice President? Wouldn't that be like a declaration of war?
Well, you know, the House has the power of the purse. That's what Manny would.
Yeah.
But I think it remains to be seen whether he'll start the first. You know, he'll fire the first salvo already.
It is still a speculation, but if the speaker really is trying to shoot down the vice president, he can start by removing the confidential fund.
Okay. The vice president also has, for the first time in our history, her own security
Team.
command.
Yeah.
Right? If the president shows displeasure with her, I think that would be another way of
Removing.
showing that, right?
Yeah.
Removing. But I don't think that's
It will not happen.
will not happen.
The president and Sara Duterte are still very, very close.
okay.
It's only with the speaker that there's an ongoing problem.
Were you surprised when Vice President Sara said that it was actually Amy Marcos who convinced her to slide down to Vice President?
It's true.
Yeah, but were you surprised?
No.
Because the conventional wisdom was it was Gloria Arroyo.
No, it's really Amy. Because we heard during the campaign that it was Amy who called up a close friend of the vice president to invite her to Cebu. Because Amy will go there and Bongbong Marcos will go there. So the first meeting between Sara and Bongbong Marcos happened in Cebu. It was arranged by Amy Marcos. It's not Gloria. Gloria came later.
Clint, maybe last question. Do you think conflict between the Marcos and Duterte camps is inevitable, or it can still be prevented?
Well, certainly worth watching. See what what happens. I think it's hard to tell what the future will be. But I think if you look at the situation as as it stands today, if you look at the snapshot today, as Manny said, I think you have possibly presidential contenders from both camps. So something if that holds true, then certainly something will have to give.
And
I
Manny,
think-
my last question for you. Sorry, I'm trying to get in as many questions as I can. In the first year of Marcos, 342 deaths under the
Drug war.
continuing drug war.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the killings are still happening?
Well, I don't know, but the police are still have not stopped their drug war campaign, and there are still some police officers who wanted to get rid of the drug problem, and what they have done during the Duterte administration, they think that it is a best way to end the problem. So they continue it. Because the president has not really ordered them to stop or to modify the drug war campaign. Although he's saying that their focus will be different, to run after the big suppliers, the drug lords, but the method that is being used is still the same. So that's why we are seeing deaths. But compared to President Duterte, it has really gone down. And even the foreign embassies here in the Philippines appreciate that there's been a change in the human rights situation. It's now maybe better than during Duterte's time.
But 342 is still almost like one a day, right?
Yes, yes. Still, there's still one death is
Too many.
too many. So, but I think the problem here is that the president should order a revision of the drug war on how
So
it's
maybe
being.
I can end there. Why hasn't he? Is it because
It's because
concession to President Duterte?
It's because a concession to the Dutertes. But going back to your question to Kling, I would say that a division between the two could happen after 2025. Because at this point, we can hear former President Duterte hitting, attacking
Yes, he's become
the
active
president's policy, especially on drugs, on China,
on the Afghanistan refugees.
yes, on the refugees. And of course, you can separate Sara from Duterte. Even before
That's right.
the elections,
That's right.
the father and daughter are not in good terms. But you see the PDP Laban, I think I heard one PDP Laban official that said that they will start becoming a fiscalizer for the Marcos administration. So it would be a start of a break between the Duterte and the Marcos camp. And of course, we don't know where Sara will be, because her father is, of course, her father, and blood is thicker than water.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't doubt, Manny's analysis. That's why he won the Pulitzer Prize for that investigative report. But I think it should also be mentioned that the drug syndicates have not stopped selling drugs. And if you're talking about why there is conflict, it's one. The police is only one side. Law enforcement is only one side. The criminals have not stopped.
And
Yeah.
the police are also involved, because recently you see that 1 ton of shabu was confiscated from a police officer.
Which leads to the spectacle of the PNP chief himself saying, we're not sure if we're winning the drug war. I mean, after 6+7 years. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. We can continue talking for at least another hour. But thank you, Mr. Manny Mogato, and thank you, Mr. Dante Ang II. Your insights help inform the discussions in the public square and contribute to its defense. Thank you again.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I saw another analyst for another media organization suggest that while the Marcos administration doesn't have much to be proud of in its first year, at least the first year didn't prove to be calamitous. I think that is fundamentally wrong. There is a seeming calm in the affairs of state, not a lack of controversy to be sure, but rather a seeming return to the usual ups and downs of an administration. In other words, a return to normalcy. But this is the calm before the storm. In my view, the Marcoses and Romualdezes have consolidated their power, while the Dutertes have not lost their advantages at all. I'm afraid that what really happened in the first year of the second Marcos government is that the groundwork for trouble, bad trouble, was put in place. As always, the next step for engaged citizens is to take a more active part in rebuilding our democracy. See you in the public square. This is John Nery. Thank you and good night.